everybody, it's Tom from Creatures Book Reviews. I've been trying to get this video made for a long time. This is my BookTube Newbie Tag. This was recommended that I do this by Jason White, and I appreciated that. I actually did film it once before, but the audio on my phone was going out on my recording device, and so I had to get that situated. I started my channel and I've thrown out a couple of videos, I think a haul and then maybe one review of a book. And then all kinds of trouble broke loose in my life. I ended up having surgery on my back, and I ended up with COVID, and my wife ended up with COVID, and it was just a pretty rough December. And in January, I started having technical problems with my phone. So I have now purchased myself a new phone, and I'm making videos again, and I wanted to go ahead and do this BookTube Newbie Tag. So I have the questions over here, and I'm going to glance over at those. I'm going to answer each one of those for you, and I appreciate you watching. So here we go. Why did you start this channel? Well, I started this channel because I began watching a lot of BookTube and a lot of other BookTubers, and I thought maybe that I could contribute a little bit. It seemed like a good time, seemed like a fun community. I ran into some people that I am interested in following quite a bit, and so I did so. I've watched a lot of videos, and I've actually read quite a few books based on some of the recommendations that were out there. And so that's what the reason I just kind of wanted to start a BookTube channel of my own, because I've always been interested in reading ever since I was very, very small, something that I've always done. And I just think that it might be something really positive for me. And it says, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to BookTube? Well, I try to read a whole lot of things that I just truly enjoy. I think my enthusiasm is probably something that might be considered a little bit fun. But I do have backgrounds in creative writing and film. I have a master's degree in English, and I've taught in college. And I also currently teach junior hires, teach language arts. And I've done that for many years now. And it's a blast, and I enjoy it. And I think that maybe, it's not that I'm going to bring an academic perspective, because I don't really want to get that stuff shirty, but, you know, maybe a little mix in there. Some academic perspectives, plus just a whole lot of fun. And I read all sorts of things, and I truly enjoy them. So hopefully I can bring that uniqueness to the channel and just my own enthusiasm for reading. And it says, what are you most excited about in the new channel? Well, because I want to share some videos with you guys about some books that I am really interested in. And I also really am interested in independent publishers and those that have published independently. I am particularly interested, it's really near and dear to my heart, I'm particularly interested in the sword and sorcery genre, the horror genre, fantasy in general, science fiction. And I also read many other types of books, but my first love was kind of sword and sorcery. And so I will focus some videos on that, I'm sure, as well as others. It's just something that is very close to me. It's very important to me. Why do I love reading? Well, I love reading because you can be anyone when you read. You can go to any world when you read. It takes you more places than you could possibly imagine. And I'm one of these people that visualize myself as one of the characters usually, and I end up really identifying with those characters in some way. It can be something that just touches my heart in some way, or that I just have felt that way since I was a young person. I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of like you've seen the old picture where it says that gamers, you know, lead many lives. Well, so do readers. We lead many lives. We're able to read and enjoy and explore things that other people who don't read never get to encounter. And so I think that's a lot of fun, and that's probably my favorite part about reading. It's a great escape. It's a wonderful escape from some of the troubles of life, and you can have a lot of fun, and then sometimes you can enrich yourself by doing so. And I think that's probably one of the best things about it. What book series got you into reading? Well, I have to say that I've been read since I was a very little child. My mom used to read little golden books to me, and I remember she used to read Bambi to me, this little novelization of Bambi. And I was like 2 or 3, barely speaking, and I had this book memorized. I wasn't reading it, but she would sit it in front of me, and I would flip through it at the right pages, and I would do the inflections. and the people that would come over would be like, is he reading? And of course, that made Mom proud. I have no memory of any of this. She just told me that many years later. And so that's kind of where I got my start reading. I've been read to my whole life, and I think it's very important for kids to have somebody read to them. But honestly, the first series that really got me just absolutely hooked is I got a copy of one of the Ace paperbacks of Conan, and I read those stories that were between those pages, and it just took me to a whole other place. And I think that's why the sword and sorcery genre is so dear to my heart, is because that was kind of one of the first types of heroic fictions that I ever read, and I was really into it. And I read it at probably far too young an age, but that's just how it goes sometimes. All right, what questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? Well, I'm interested in how you maintain a schedule, a good schedule. It's hard for me. I am an incredibly busy man. I have to do this late at night. My wife's already in bed, and I have to get up for work tomorrow, but I have to find the time to make these videos, and I think that that's pretty tough. I'd like to know how these booktubers are managed to do one of these every few days, or I'm going to try to do at least one a week. It's also hard to get everything read that you're reading. I read multiple books at the same time. That's just how I am. Doesn't bother me. It really bugs some people, I know, but it's something I enjoy doing. And I just think that I would want to know how to get the exposure in the audience. I'm not after anything other than to create a group of like-minded people that I can talk to and share my enthusiasm for some things that I'm reading with. And that's really what it's all about for me, is just the fun of it. And so if that's what you're about, I hope that you'll follow me along my little journey here and see how far we can go. All right. What challenges do you think starting a BookTube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Well, I think maintaining a schedule is probably the hardest, which I've already talked about. But I also think that being able to address the specific interests of different groups and to share my enthusiasm for my particular interest and maybe pull some people in that were not really interested in some of the types of literature that I am into. Now, I've read classics and I've read all this stuff, but when it comes down to the end of the day, we read for pleasure. We read to gain information, of course, but when most of us just generally read for pleasure and for some sort of edification, and I think that's really important that we're able to do that. So hopefully that the enthusiasm will be there, and that's what I'm going to try to put forward. When did I start reading? Well, I was really little, like I say. When my mom and my dad took me to the grocery store, they'd always read to me the little golden books and the stories, and I think my mom read me like a couple of books called the Bible story books and Little Visits with God, and things like that when I was a young man. And she read me all of these stories, from everything from Dr. Seuss to the little golden books. But I remember going to the grocery store and seeing, in 1978, and seeing a copy, I'm telling you how old I am there, of Devil Dinosaur, #1, an old Jack Kirby comic book, which I also really enjoy graphic novels and comics as well. I have a comic book channel in addition to this channel, but I wanted to try to keep my interests separate, so it's more for me than anything else. A lot of people try to put everything on one channel. Well, I have a movie review channel, I have a BookTube channel, I have a comic book channel, and I have a devotional channel that I do. So I have 4 channels that I'm running, and you think that maybe that might be too much, but it helps me keep my mindset and everything separated. So that's what I do. So links are down there for those as well if you're interested in checking any of those out. The movie channel has not started. It's just made. I'm getting ready to start doing movie reviews. I'm a huge movie buff as well. So as I said before, film and creative writing was my undergraduate emphasis, and British literature and all of that sort of thing. But I just have always loved the creativity. But I saw this comic book, back to the story, in the grocery store, and I said, can I have that? It had a big red dinosaur on it. I have a CGC copy of it over my shoulder here, but in really good condition. And I asked them if I could have it, and they bought it for me. And when I read that about that cave boy, Moon Boy, riding on the back of that big red T-Rex, I was transported to another world. And And that kind of was one of the things that opened me up to all the different types of fantasy writing that was out there, and really got me interested in that type of literature. And then I saw Conan on the stand, and it's kind of the rest is history. After that, I used to haunt these bookstores when I was a kid. They were independent booksellers back then, more so than say big chains now. And I would go and I would look through those books, and I would order books special, and they would have to get the very ones that I wanted. And I would have to wait and then go back and pick it up. And it was quite different than it is today, when you can have it just sent to your house in 2 days, or get it immediately on your reading device, whatever that might be. So that's how I got my start, and that's how long I've been reading. Now, it says, where do I read? I read anywhere, pretty much anywhere. I read on my phone. I prefer physical copies, but I will read like a Kindle, but mostly on my phone, on my computer screen. I read in my living room, in my man cave, which is what this is. And I read in the bed. I read anywhere and anytime that I have an opportunity to do so. So I read everywhere. I read in the car. If I try to always have an audiobook going, and I also have a print book going, and I'm just any chance I get. So I read everywhere. What kind of books do I like to read? Well, I like all kinds of books. I've read everything from self-help books to fantasy to horror to weird fiction to autobiographies to all of these things, to history books, all kinds of stuff. If it's made of words, I'll read it. That's kind of how I see it. But my favorite genres are, of course, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and weird fiction. That's what I'm more into than anything else. I think that kind of speaks to some of the things in our life that we have to deal with. Science fiction is very predictive. Fantasy helps us deal with, our beliefs and how we deal with life. Sometimes horror shows us the dark side of things and truly pits good against evil. I like those sort of black and white, non-ambiguous morality plays that sometimes exist in literature. Now, I realize that there's some ambiguous characters sometimes, and I enjoy an anti-hero every now and then. I'm a big fan of Elric, things like that, quite often. So I read everything, and I just prefer those genres. But I just recently read a man called Uve. I think Murphy did a review on her channel. She so moved me with what she said about this book that I had to go read it. So I got it and I read it, and I also was moved by it. So maybe I'll review it at some point. So I read a lot of different things. All right, last question. It says, what does your book collection look like? Well, one word, it's huge. I have all these here. There's books stacked over here. I have a garage out here, sort of a man cave annex, I like to call it, that is a library. I have close to 3,000 books. I have most books that I had when I was probably from the 7th or 8th grade forward. And I'm 51, so there you go. I've been doing this a long, long time. I collect vintage paperbacks, both from science fiction and fantasy or horror or weird fiction or whatever. I collect those. I also like special editions and things like that. So I have several signed editions, which are mostly here. Need to get those put up a little better. Signed editions here. And maybe I'll talk about those one day. I also have been very fortunate to run into some people that were willing to offload some books to me. And it was really nice. So I have a large collection, and so I have a lot that I can pull from. But I'm always getting more. It's a real problem. I can't seem to stop buying books. That's a confession. I think we all have that. And there's probably 400 or 500 on my reader also. But in any case, that's me. I hope that you enjoyed the video and you got to know me a little bit. If you're interested, please give me a subscription, give me a thumbs up, and make some comments. I'd love to talk with you, and I appreciate you stopping by. Be kind to each other. See you next time.